Hello, everyone. We're so glad you're here with us. If you enjoy this episode, please rate, review, and share it so that we can reach more ECEs and childcare workers. My name is Rachel Neville, and I will be your host today. So, today on the podcast, we are so excited to welcome two wonderful members of Parents for Childcare. Today, we have Dave Bush, who is a Toronto parent and a member of Parents for Childcare. And we're also welcoming Janet Amito, an immigrant woman originally from Uganda who moved to Canada in 2021. As a single mother of five, Janet has navigated the challenges of rebuilding her life in a new country while raising her children, including her 3-year-old who currently attends preschool at Ontario Street, one of the neighborhood group's childcare centers. Janet works as a peer parent coordinator with the neighborhood group's childcare services, which operates up to 10 childcare centers across Toronto. Her lived experience as a parent trying to access affordable, quality childcare compelled her to actively engage as a member of Parents for Childcare, a parent led advocacy group where she volunteers her time to push for a childcare system that is affordable, inclusive, high quality, and accessible for all families in Toronto and beyond. Welcome, Dave and Janet. Thank you for being here. So let's get started. I'm really curious how each of you became involved in advocating for childcare, more generally, and then perhaps you can talk about how you got involved in Parents for Childcare specifically. And Janet, would you like to start us off?
How I got involved with Parents for Childcare, first of all, was when I became the peer parent coordinator at TNG. That was in early 2024. But before that, as a parent, I was navigating the childcare system, because I had a child who was due for daycare way before 2024.
Mm.
And I didn't know what to do. I looked around and I'm like, who is fighting for us? And then I
Yeah.
got that position as a peer parent coordinator and then met up with a larger group. And I'm like, oh, this is really where I belong. Something needs to be done. The challenges that I went through can actually be addressed through this platform. And that is how, my volunteering began with Parents for Childcare. And since then, it's just been one thing leading to the other. And yeah, the story of advocacy has not ended since then.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. How you can find your way into, there's so many different ways to find your way into this work, but getting involved can be such a powerful thing. Dave, how did you find yourself as a member of Parents for Childcare?
Similar to Janet, sort of like, I was aware of what was going on in childcare a little, but then, we were expecting a kid. So all of a sudden you're kind of just hit with that reality of you're like, okay, I gotta put my kid on this unborn kid on all these lists. And you kind of have to start planning and thinking about this. And you're thinking about like how much is this going to cost? Like what's the budget of this? And then you're kind of realizing, okay, Seawalk's in place and here's the steps that are happening, but also it's getting hard to get into some of the places. And just realizing I need to know more about the ins and outs of the Seawalk program and what's going on in childcare, like how the workers are being treated, etc.
Mm.
So we had, a gap in our parental leave, and so we ended up sending our kid to daycare for a couple months at when they were 8 months to an infant space. So, and it was very kind of last minute, and we didn't have tons of options, and they ended up in a for-profit center. And and there's like the workers are good or whatever, but it was obviously, it felt like a for-profit center. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like that was the vibe. It was like McDonald's kind of style. Yeah, I like McDonald's, whatever, but you know what I mean? Like it was that was the vibe of it. And then, we were still on these other lists, and eventually we got into a different space, and we kind of it was unionized, it was like a non-for-profit, and it was a very different vibe. And so yeah, that was sort of like just being paying attention to that. And then the other thing is, just knowing a lot of other parents, you just get to know tons of other parents. And one of the things that started coming up is that people just kept getting all this information about Sea Welk and from this group called ACE or something.
Mm-hmm.
The Alberta, the National Alberta Group of For-Profit Operators. I don't know what the acronym is, and it was a lot of misinformation, and it
Yeah.
actually forced me and some other folks to just get to know more about what is actually happening, because people were having all these questions, and you could kind of see this myth being pushed by some of the for-profit operators, and how it was coming down to the like other parents that we knew through their centers pushing their myth fact sheets and their
Yeah.
whatever. So I think it was just a number of people who were around that kind of formed Parents for Childcare. We need an actual voice that
Mm-hmm.
for parents that wants quality childcare that's affordable and that's accessible for everybody and that pays workers well and treats them well. And obviously, what was out there from ACE or whatever was just really a disorganizing thing. And so I think that was this sort of impetus of be like, okay, we need to organize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how sometimes that misinformation it breeds fear, right? And then the fear can sometimes push us to connect with other people and form these groups. It's such a cool origin story of Parents for Childcare. I don't know if I've ever heard how it kind of got off the ground before. So thank goodness it did. So, in terms of, I know you kind of mentioned working with ECEs. I think sometimes, we're in our silos, right? And we have overlapping concerns, of course, about quality childcare and wages and stuff. But sometimes I think maybe ECs and parents don't always have the opportunity to collaborate and advocate together. So, I'm wondering why you think it's so important for ECs and parents to have that solidarity. Janet, do you want to start?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I think about the ECE crisis, I'm immediately reminded of how long I had to wait to get my child into daycare.
Yeah.
When I had my child as a newcomer to Canada, unlike my friend Dave, I had no idea that you had to really apply when you are expecting. So
Yeah.
my child was about 6 months, and that's when I heard from a church group, and they were telling me, "Oh, have you registered your child for daycare?" And I'm like, "No, I thought it's automatic. I thought since I had the baby in the hospital, automatically information should have trickled down to the nearby schools, and then when I'm ready to work, obviously my child will find a spot to go." Fast
Yeah.
forward, it's about 12, 13 months. My child is about 14 months as a single mom, and I hadn't gotten a spot yet. I
Mm.
was due to go back to work. And my EI ran out and I had to go on to Ontario work. Still, my son hadn't gotten a spot in the nearby daycare centers
Yeah.
until just by one stroke of luck, a place opened when he was 17 months. Then I took him to a little further daycare, but still about a 30 minutes walk and maybe two stops by bus. And
Hmm.
that's when it hit me that maybe if ECEs, our early child educators, were paid enough, or if there was more funding in this space, we would not suffer the wait lists.
Mm.
The wait list wouldn't be long. There would be enough to hire more teachers. And like in this space, in my experience as a peer parent coordinator, I have seen so many immigrant early child educators or assistants. A lot of them start as assistants, and interacting with them, they tell me how they have to work in shifts because there isn't sufficient money you know, to cover to make sure they get full pay or a full day. They have to work a few hours and then go back and another person picks the shift. So it is very, very important because of that. I mean, if it is well funded, then people would work full hours, the educators would be in many numbers, and the wait list would not be there. There would be enough, there would be sufficient funds to, open other daycares in very populous areas. For instance, I still live in downtown Toronto. It's a place that has a lot of immigrant families. St. James
Mm.
Town, there's so many. And I mean, people are having babies every time. Yeah. So we needed that space. And I hear from parents all the time how they have been waiting for long with no space. So these kind of things almost go together. Yeah. So
Mhm.
for me, that is one of the things that I really feel there is a need to have a huge solidarity between the educators and even us parents. And also recently I had an opportunity to just attend the QUP 248 meeting, and I went there as Parents for Childcare and had an opportunity to meet with the educators who are unionized. And they say there's usually that gap. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's usually that gap between them, the educators, and the parents. And because of that gap, yeah, there is no, I would say the communication flow is kind of disrupted. And this really plays out most especially with when it comes to children with special needs. Yeah. Because
Mm.
what happens right now, from my understanding, and because of that meeting, I got to learn that the reason almost every child care center, we have an increasing number of children with special needs. And the government seems to be silent about this and not giving sufficient funding about this, or even parents don't want to sometimes accept the situation of their children. So if parents, yeah, and educators come together, and even I see from TDSB, just that effort of parents should meet up with the educators, it is lacking in
Mm.
childcare. If we had little parent days, or just that interaction beyond the sending of the pictures in the day, or the baby did this, he ate this, he played like this, there is that need for that interaction. And also
Mhm.
some of these ECEs are parents themselves, they have children. So there's just it's solidarity is something we can't run away from, and as parents for childcare, we are really open to working with them and welcoming them into our space anytime. Yeah.
Yeah.
Reflection.
Yeah, what you're sharing, I think it resonates with a lot of what we hear from ECEs that, there are rooms that aren't even open because they can't staff them because ECEs aren't able to make a living wage working in the fields. And even with the wage floor, it's still not enough. So yeah, what you're saying is really resonating. And I think that, the Parents for Childcare group is such an amazing place. And, you're both showing ECE's your dedication and commitment by participating in this group. And it's so wonderful to see. Dave, do you have anything to share about solidarity with ECEs and parents?
Yeah, I think in some ways it's like the basics are this, like ECEs are taking care of my kid for many hours a day,
Yeah.
5 days a week. And I rely, our family, like other families, relies on this and relies on
Mhm.
those ECs to do a good job to help grow our children and give them love and support. Um, it's like an integral part of our family, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
Um, and so like a natural extension of that is like I want those workers to feel secure. I want those workers to feel loved and dignity as
Mhm.
well, because like that's part of our child's learning experience. And
Hmm.
so if just like at the basic level, I mean, that's what it boils down to. And I see this, I see it every day. Like my kid loves her ECEs,
Yeah.
absolutely adores them. And it matters. It matters to our family, and it matters to the families in our center. I know this. And I
Hmm.
see the difference between where my kid goes to daycare, there's like long-term ECs, like people who've been there for a while. They're in a unionized facility, and like it is a difference. And then we've had the experience of other places where, those workers are probably not getting great wages or not being treated well. And
Mhm.
there's a constant churn of workers who drop out, who leave, who try to look for a better center or just leave the field altogether. And
Hmm.
that has a detrimental impact on the kids, to be honest, because they're forming real relationships, and we have to like honor that. Yeah, and then I will say a couple other things. One is that it's also a fault line in the movement. It's very easy for the Ford government or now the Carney government, etc., to kind of figure out a way to pit workers, ECU workers, and Jan's right, ECU workers, like they also have kids, but like this idea of ECE workers against parents, like those interests,
Yeah.
right? And same thing with the for-profit lobby, et cetera. Those folks, they're trying to do that. They're trying to say, there's a certain funding envelope or whatever, and this money can either go to wages or it can go to reduce costs or to fund new centers, whatever. They
Mm,
can't do all three. And so it's trying to pit us against each other when our interests are actually aligned.
mhm,
And one of the early sort of experiences we had in Parents for Childcare was, and it wasn't necessarily like it kind of happened as our group was forming. And it wasn't like totally central, but it was like a learning experience, which is uh, at some of the less centers, I think that they basically sent out a letter like four or whatever, just saying we can't afford this and we're going to cut workers' wages, right?
mm,
Like we need more funding or these workers' wages are going to get cut. And then they did cut workers' wages, and the parents like actually had to get organized, and they were outraged.
yeah.
And the parents got organized. And what ended up happening was actually those workers ended up unionizing, and the parents provided real support. And I think it gave confidence for those workers to actually do it. But um, it was a good lesson about what can happen if you don't actually have that solidarity or that perspective of shared interests. And then the other
Mhm,
thing that we went through as a family, and anyone in the George Brown system or in the college system, we had our kid was at a George Brown affiliated daycare,
mhm,
and other daycares that were affiliated with colleges all shut down this fall for 8 weeks, something like that. It felt like an eternity, um, uh, because of the strike, where 10,000 college workers went out, and there was a not wasn't overwhelmingly amount of ECEs, like it was actually a fairly small amount, but it was actually the only thing shut down in the college system. And it would be very easy for the parents to blame the workers.
mhm,
And one of the things I think that we were able to do, like as a little network of people who kind of knew people in different parts of the George Brown system, was actually organize parent support. Um, Keeping like, one of the first things that we did when we got to this, just like became parents of the center, was just organize a WhatsApp chat, just, for basic stuff like trading info about illnesses or
yeah.
birthdays or whatever, but it also became a way for us to educate around, the issues around the strike, what matters. And then we actually ended up, visiting the picket line and seeing our workers there. And it was like I think a really important experience for our daughter to go out there and actually do a little, go out to the picket line with our workers. And
Yeah.
yeah, so it was just like one of those things where we kind of, if we didn't have that perspective, it was easy to kind of pit parents against workers. And in some ways, we were able to organize lots of media stuff to get a good pro worker, pro ECE message out into the media. So I think we did a pretty good job.
Mhm,
And there was a counter group, a sort of who tried to basically say like these workers, like the strike should be crushed, and the
mhm,
workers should be crushed so my kid can go back to work. And to
yeah.
me, that's just a nonsensical way of looking at the world. These workers are fighting for dignity, and we should be respecting that, even though um, it's a hardship, obviously, when your kid's daycare is on strike. But trying to direct that anger at the government. So I
Mhm,
think that these issues are aligned. And to be honest, I think there's something that it's something that we have to do continuously, right? Because this is going to continuously kind of come up when the government is trying to shortchange, both levels of government trying to shortchange funding. They're going to try to say there's money for this or there's money for that. Um, and so we got to kind of reject that false choice.
yeah. Yeah, you both just painted such a picture of how natural of an allyship it really can be. And I think, you know, having the having parent fees decoupled from ECE wages has been a really great step to try to, make it not as much of a you against them type of situation. But like you said, Dave, there are still situations with funding where um, we are pitted against each other. And it's just so important to have that worker solidarity and yeah, bring your kiddos to the picket line. I love that. I mean, you both have shared a little bit about this, but are there any like major takeaways that you've had from this experience organizing with other parents and with ECEs? Like any big moments that kind of stand out as, um, yeah, like changing your mindset or how you view things? Janet, would you like to start?
Well, for me, my takeaway would be just seeing the level of commitment that parents, have towards the issue of childcare for their children. I mean, just sitting back and looking at how we made those calls and just calling up parents, organizing them to, attend the Zoom meetings, parents sitting up late between 8 and 9, and even the Zoom network, I mean, the Zoom link expires and another one, you know, and they are trying to make sure, you know, they are fighting for a noble cause. They're trying to make sure as many parents as possible, even not just parents, but even it should spiral to other people who are concerned about the posterity of Canada. I mean, when I was in Ottawa, I observed a lot of these ladies, the advocates for childcare, are at grandmother level, the elderly women, but they still care about the future generation. So for me, that was very humbling, right? And sometimes I look back and as an immigrant who has gone through the um, social assistance system, and sometimes I tell my fellow immigrants, I'm like, you people don't want to involve yourself in parents for childcare because you are given full subsidy and you don't really feel the pinch. Yeah. But if you start working like some of us, then you will understand why you need to advocate for quality, inclusive, affordable childcare, and also care about just the ECE teachers, the educators, sorry, thinking about their wages, the hours they spend with the children. I liked what Dave said, the connections they make.
Hmm.
I'm a Christian, so every time I'm praying and my little one finds me, tells me, pray for teacher Eva. You haven't prayed for Rosalda. You have, that kind of thing. So
Hmm.
it is really, really, really so important. And for me, that is what I find as a very important, takeaway. And also just the fact that childcare, I mean, it's just something that, would improve the workforce as a mother, a single mother in this season of my life. Without childcare, how would I work? I work as a social service worker, a case worker, who thinks and carries a lot of other people's problems on my head. Now, how am I going to do that if I don't have somebody taking care of my little one? And social assistance alone cannot run my household. So the money that I am making without childcare, I would either sit home and be on social assistance and then have insufficient funds to, take care of my household. So
Hmm.
it has just a huge, when we were in these meetings, we have seen the effect of not having childcare, whether it is to health workers, to everyone in any field, it affects anybody. So it is that important. And just for children, it's very important for, just seeing that when you see those children interact, the innocence with which they come into the system, we don't want to break that. We want them to
Hmm.
go through a system that is formal, that is uniform, so that when they go to elementary school and other levels of, there is that equity of them having all, being able to access a uniform system. Yeah, so that when they go there, those shocks that we see in state in like stratification of or classification of the social classification is not visible at all. And for a country like Canada that prides itself in diversity, equity, and inclusion, that is super important. So for me, those are my little takeaways I can speak to right now. Thank you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Dave, any big takeaways for you about this experience?
I think Janet touched on a couple. And one is something, Janet, you touched on earlier, which is like, oh, just like having my kid 6 months, like my kid's born. It would just be a rational society. I would be put on a list and have access to a childcare space in my neighborhood,
Hmm.
etc. Just like our school system, etc.
Hmm.
But it's not like that. And in some ways, this whole experience has actually sharpened my understanding, my vision of what I think like the kind of childcare system I would like for our society and why it's important. Like everybody should have access uh, to affordable. I would argue, like in my grand vision, it should be free, like school,
Yeah.
childcare, that like everybody can get a spot at, that the workers are treated well, paid well, there's clear rules of the road, etc., and that people can actually have sustainable careers, and live in the cities in which they work.
Mm-hmm.
That is like what we want because it creates stability and security for families, for children to grow up, um, and so forth. And I also just think that like we can get there. Like I want to say a couple of things. Like one is that parents, like you can actually have an impact. It's like you can organize. It's not that hard. Like the thing is, being a parent, and organizing in your off time is like it's not that easy, but it's not that hard. As in, we're all tired. We're all organizing at weird times or whatever. But just some basic stuff. Like we're social. You talk to other parents. You talk to other parents about other things at the playground. One of the things that we did, just set up a WhatsApp in your center or whatever, just to trade basic information. Just leveraging those social connections and being a place of where you can provide information about this program, See Well, to other parents who may not know, who may be encountering, kind of myths, etc. And being that, it actually has a pretty good outsized impact, and it's pretty easy to do in terms of it doesn't require tons of energy. It just means like bringing a bit of, I would say, politics into those relationships, and that's a good thing. And the idea is that we want to make this kind of organizing accessible and easy for other people to do. Come on a Zoom call, talk to other parents in your neighborhood. Like you don't have to do a million other things. But if you can kind of do that, then we can get a bunch of other people doing that. I think that, we're cooking with gas, as they say. And we're all trying to fight for and we all sort of, I think, experience the role of like what affordable, accessible childcare and good quality childcare can have in our society. Like knowing that my kid is happy in their spot and that they have something, it's like really important. And our family would be a lot more dysfunctional if we didn't have that. Um, and so I just think that, and I guess one of the other learnings is like I would trade 1,000 CEOs for one ECE. You know what I mean? And it's just like who our society values in terms of like who we're giving tax cuts to, who we're giving subsidies to the oil and gas sector. And there's a lot of things that I can see our governments doing at both levels, and they're valuing the wrong things. And I
Mm,
would like to fight for a society where we're valuing the right things because those things matter. You know what I mean? They actually impact our communities.
yeah.
But yeah, my big takeaway is it's like you can organize. It's like it's not it should be accessible for every parent.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think too, like what you're getting at is organizing is community building. It's relationships. Like it all starts with that. And also kind of what I'm hearing from the two of you, getting on Zoom at weird times to talk to other parents, it's energizing. You're not feeling like you're depleted at the end of that. You're meeting like-minded people and connecting over issues that you care about. And that's something, at least from my experience, and it sounds like the two of you as well, it's galvanizing and it gives you that fuel to do the next thing and the next thing. I I know that Janet has had a pretty cool opportunity recently, but I'm wondering if you both can share, any opportunities that have arisen from your involvement with Parents for Childcare, whether that's like, other opportunities in terms of like speaking with your politicians or getting connected with other organizations. But Janet, I'm going to start with you because I know you have a very recent example.
So I have had amazing opportunities. I mean, for a newcomer in Canada, it's been really quite a great, opportunity just to do this, and all because of Parents for Childcare. I mean, I have met with Christine Wang Tam, little roundtable meetings with her, just to tell her about our plans. And because of that meeting, she went ahead and organized the childcare summit in our region. I mean, she's our MPP downtown, and myself and other parents were there from Parents for Childcare. They were all there speaking to the issue of $10 per day. So it was such an amazing thing that we could actually sit down with Christine Wang Tam and hear that she also is having the same worry as us,
Mm-hmm.
and thinking that she could bring it out on a round table for people in her neighborhood to collect views from them, so that she can go and deliberate on these things, in Queen's Park was very, very important and such a noble thing to be part of. We've had meetings, and, as a peer coordinator, I work closely with a colleague of mine called Stephanie. Stephanie has had the opportunity of speaking with Teresa Armstrong, also an MPP for Hamilton, just to discuss, just to make sure, parents for, just to make sure the $10 per day and all these things that we are advocating for come to life.
Mm-hmm.
And we also had those little, not little, but we had the opportunity of the press conference at Queen's Park, and just even meeting other parents and connecting, gatherings here and there, and just being able to talk about this with other parents, at little children parties, even speak to our ECE teachers, on the Child ECE Appreciation Day. That was a very, very, very fundamental day. And we had the opportunity at my school, at my daycare, to speak to the chairperson of the TNG group, and that is Bill Sinclair, and just to get his thought about what he thinks about childcare. And he gave some amazing, takeaways that we could use to build our agency as childcare. And he also felt for a fact that something more needs to be done. Funding has to be increased. And I remember in these gatherings, I've also learned that, the after school program is also at risk. So all these are opportunities that the Parents for Childcare have really given me and helped me understand the sector more and appreciate it, and even work harder at it, give it my best, yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Amazing. And you were also in Ottawa recently.
I thought that was very recent. Yes. I was
Yeah.
in Ottawa and met the most amazing team, the most passionate people about childcare, including the minister. She herself, when Mona had an opportunity to speak with her, she said she does understand, what is happening, and she really feels that there has to be sufficient funding for the sector, and that she is going to really, really, put that case out there, for childcare funding to be increased, so that there is affordable, accessible childcare for all, which was really amazing. I mean, that day we were following up her tweets, and we saw her tweets, her messaging out there was really just, it was really just speaking to accessibility, speaking to affordability, speaking to all the things that uh, Parents for Childcare stands for. And that is very amazing, knowing that everything is now moving from provincial to federal level, and hopefully something better, something more robust will come out of it. Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Dave, how about you?
Yeah, opportunities. I was like, I guess on a personal level, like I kind of more do the whatever little phone calls and this and that, so less out in the world, which is fine. But I will say, like, I ended up during the OPSU strike, our group helped organize a kind of a parent voice that was like pro ECE, etc., to help cut against what I think would be a potentially very bad narrative. And so I ended up getting to speak in the media a couple of times. And I felt supported, and I know other members of our group also spoke in the media as well. And I think there was a pretty good level of support amongst ourselves, which is
Hmm.
nice. And the opportunities really are about learning how to do stuff, feeling more confident about the issues. I think our meetings are kind of opportunities to learn both about what is actually happening in the sector, but also what can we do, right? Like, how do we organize, like, maybe we're going to do a phones app or send a letter out, or maybe we're going to go organize meetings, as Janet was saying, with MPPs,
Hmm.
and like whatever that is. And so you get to learn a lot about how to do some of this stuff, which is nice. Um, and I will say the other little thing is that there's just been some nice opportunities just at the local level, like uh, in our center. Like, we set up this WhatsApp group, and it slowly became a thing, involving all the rooms at the center. And like, it took a little bit, but we actually, got to talk to every single parent, get them added in, and we unearthed some other people who are awesome, and real gems of like, who get it, I guess. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, it wasn't like we made them get it. It's like they also are thinking along these lines, and that's nice.
Yeah.
Um, and so when we had this like issue at our center where it's housed in a school, and they were like cooking our kids, like they were in a mini bake oven, and it was so hot over the summer. Um,
Yeah.
and so we ended up using that connection to actually organize, and like, parents were like, maybe I can help like figure out this electrical thing to get the AC
Mhm.
working, whatever. And then, and then we were talking to TDSB, and like, and it feels like a small thing, but to be honest, what ended up happening is it did get solved through our advocacy. And it's also cooking the workers, by the way. Like, these
Yeah.
are workers who are working in like 38 degrees. It's like, it's bad, right? Like,
Mhm.
so it's not a fun environment for them, for anybody in there.
Mhm.
But it did get addressed, and it was because the parents actually kind of kept up. We were talking to our MPP, we were talking to the school board and the school trustee, etc. Put pressure on, not in a negative way, but like, just like, can you please address this? This is wrong. And to
Mhm.
me, that like actually solidified a bunch of relationships and built trust. So when we're going out and talking about these other political things about, like, what our government is saying about or doing or not doing about childcare, there's a level of trust there between parents because we've been able to collectively organize. And so that to me is an opportunity in a real sense. So yeah, it's been, for it's also a nice little support things, right? Like, we don't want to be passively observing these things happening. Like, this is good. Like, the program Seawalk was going and went down to 22 and then it didn't get to 10 that year, and then it didn't get to 10 again. It's not
Yeah.
going to get to 10 again. And all of a sudden you're kind of seeing kind of some worrying signs,
Mhm.
and we don't want to just be observers of this, like,
Yeah.
just be worrying about it, but like, actually, how can we organize to make a difference and connect with other people? And that actually is very helpful, to be honest, and it like boosts our confidence and our spirits to work together.
Amazing. That's awesome. Yeah, there's so many opportunities that come up when you can sort of put yourself out there and have that trust. And I'm often saying that, being part of the legacy of childcare advocacy is so amazing because not only are you trying to make things better for yourself and people that you know in your community, but there's like years of long-term impact too for children that aren't even born yet and are on the wait list trying to get a spot. So, if folks are listening to this podcast episode and incredibly inspired by the both of you, which I'm sure they will be, how could they get involved in Parents for Childcare's work?
I want to say that we can just do the little things, talk to others about it, you know, we can sign up, and keep each other updated. We have the WhatsApp groups, and whoever you feel that wants to be part of this great advocacy, we can add them to the group.
Yeah, so I think a couple things. One, for parents who want to get involved, it's like follow our social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Sign up to our website. Like you can sign up to get emails, share sort of that information in your own networks. So those are basic things that I think. And then Janet's right. Like you can also sign up and then choose to join our WhatsApp group. That's also very good, or WhatsApp community. And that's a way to get plugged in. We also have upcoming meetings. Bring another parent contact.
Mhm.
Those are the things that you need to think about. Like, who else can I be organizing? And the biggest other thing is just to like organize the parents around you. I
Yeah.
guess, the people that you're going to the early ons, if you go to early ons, or at your childcare center or wherever in your park, it always naturally kind of came up for us, like at the parks. It's like, where are your kids going for childcare? Or if they're kind of still looking for childcare or on wait lists for another kid, etc. So, parents are just innately going to be swapping information because
Yeah.
we don't actually have access to all this information. Right? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like we're just relying on whatever social networks that we have around to give us leads and to give us tips and ideas because we're kind of all flying in the dark, to be honest.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. And I'll link all of the things that you mentioned, the social media and contact info in the show notes. So definitely check that out. So before we wrap up, I just want to give you both the opportunity if there's anything else you wanted to share that we didn't touch on or some parting words you want to leave folks with.
I'm looking forward to having more parents signing up and being part of Parents for Childcare in any season of their life. They don't even have to be with babies in childcare, but anybody can be part of it. Your pastors, your neighbors, your whoever. So really, that's my parting shot, just a call to, yeah.
Beautiful invitation. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just say for your audience, like for ECEs, it's like there's ECEs who are parents, like
Hmm.
join us. But for people who like aren't parents and you're ECE, it's just try to be like, we have a shared interest here. Like, yes,
Hmm.
parents have a shared interest in ECE stuff, but like ECEs have a shared interest in like actually having a strong parent advocacy group that supports
Yeah.
them and supports not just higher, like, yes, on the higher wages and better working conditions, but on a functional program that has
Mhm.
access for parents, that has affordability for parents, because that's what we all want. And we can't let I say, other side out organize us on this front, right? That they're
Mhm.
going to be the voice of childcare. That we actually need to be a strong, organized voice together, parents and workers, to have a real vision about like, yes, we can get to 10. Yes, we can get to good, really high wages, secure working conditions for workers.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both so much for being here, for your time, and for your amazing work that you're doing. It's so appreciated, and I feel super inspired after talking to you both. So, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider becoming a member. The link to join us will be in the episode description. Your membership makes a difference in the lives of ECEs and childcare workers, children and families, and allows us to continue doing this work. To all the members currently supporting us, thank you so much. To all the ECEs and childcare workers listening, you are the heart of the system, and parents are behind you 100%.